Hello and welcome to Arirang special news coverage of the country's 21st presidential election. It's June 3rd, election day here in South Korea. I'm Min Sun-hee. We start our special newscast at a polling place here in capital Seoul as voters have been heading to polling stations to cast their ballots for the next president starting 6 o'clock this morning. My colleague An Sung-jin has been on site since that hour and joins me now. Sung-jin, it's good to have you on. So I hear it's been an orderly process thus far, Sung-jin.
Good afternoon, Sunny. Great to be here. I'm currently standing in front of a polling location in Sadang-dong in Seoul's Dongjaku district. It's a little bit past 2 p.m. here, which means that it's been over 8 hours since voting began, starting from 6 a.m. this morning. Now, I've been out here since the early hours, and similar to early voting, as the day went on, we've seen a lot of people come here to cast their ballot. The election that takes place today is the first since the COVID-19 pandemic. The previous election, where masks were mandatory and regular voters were separated from those under isolation. The voting station that I'm at currently is one of 14,295 nationwide and one of 2,260 from Seoul. We already saw the second highest voter turnout rate for early voting, and many have gathered to vote early this morning as well. Have a listen to some of the voters.
I came to vote to pick someone that can lead our country because our country is so polarized and going through a difficult time. We need someone who can bring harmony as a transparent politician.
Now that I've finished voting, I'm going to go to work right away. I hope someone honest becomes the president.
Sung-jin, polling places nationwide will remain open until 8 p.m. this evening. For those of the voters who have yet to cast their ballots, what are some things for them to keep in mind before heading to exercise their civic duty?
Right, so the voting today will take place from 6 a.m. till 8 p.m. today, and voters must be 18 or above and bring a government-issued ID. Now, unlike early voting, voters can only cast their ballot based on their registered address. Now, which polling station they can vote at can be found at a voting guide delivered to each household or through the National Election Commission website. Anyone who arrives at the polls and stands in line before the polls close have the right to vote. Taking selfies or pictures of the ballots while inside the polling booths is strictly prohibited. That's all I have for now. For a glimpse at the polling location that I'm at right now, and I will be back with later updates. Back to you, Sunny.
All right, Sung-jin, thank you for that report and for the words of caution against taking pictures within polling stations. That was our An Sung-jin reporting outside a polling place here in Seoul. It's been a little over 8 hours since voting began at 6 this morning, and for a glimpse of the voter turnout thus far, I have our Euni standing by live at the National Election Commission. Euni, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Sunny.
So what has been shared about the voter turnout nationwide as we speak?
Well, Sunny, I'm at the National Election Commission in Gwacheon City, where officials are keeping track of the voter turnout. It's been about 8 hours since the polls opened this morning at 6 a.m. As of 1 p.m., 62.1% of voters had cast their ballots, the highest turnout up to that time for any Korean presidential election. The current turnout as of 2 p.m. is 65.5%, and this figure factors in numbers from early votings. Figures by region are as of 1 p.m. Jeollanam-do province, which showed the highest early voter turnout rate, is showing the highest total voter turnout at 74.1%. The lowest turnout is in Busan at 58.1%. Daegu, which had the lowest early voter turnout, now stands at 59.3%, the second lowest turnout rate so far. Gwangju is at 71.6%, while Incheon is at 60.1%, and Daejeon stands at 62.1%. The capital, Seoul, is seeing a turnout of 61.2%. Gyeonggi-do province stands at 61.6%, while Jeollabuk-do province is at 71.8%. In terms of other provinces, turnout in Chungcheongbuk-do is 61.2%, Chungcheongnam-do 60.3%, Gyeongsangbuk-do 61.8%, and Gyeongsangnam-do at 60.5% and Gyeongsangbuk-do at 61.8%. So far, the hourly voter turnout is slightly higher than in the 2022 presidential election, which ended with a final turnout of 77.1%. So now the focus is on the final turnout rate.
Right. Euni, when might we learn about the result of this latest presidential election?
Yes, Sunny, once the voting ends at 8 p.m., the ballot boxes will be sealed and taken to counting centers under police escort. Counting begins soon after, and the National Election Commission expects counting to be finished by around 6 a.m. Wednesday morning. The results should become clear by midnight once 70 to 80% of votes are counted. However, final results, of course, may take longer depending on voter turnout and how close the race is. Once counting is done, the NEC will hold a full committee meeting in which the new president will be formally declared. This meeting is expected to happen between 7 and 9 a.m. on Wednesday, and the process should only take 5 to 10 minutes. The new president's term will immediately begin. Earlier on Monday, Do Tae-ak, chairman of the National Election Commission, urged active voter participation, emphasizing the importance of creating a united South Korea through voting. No assured the public that the NEC has prioritized transparency, highlighting measures such as 24-hour CCTV at early voting stations and a vote paper inspection system, both implemented in last year's general election. Authorities are focusing on safety management as well. The National Fire Agency has launched special emergency operations at over 15,000 polling and counting stations nationwide, running until ballot counting ends. Also this morning at 6 a.m., police declared the highest level of emergency alert, mobilizing all available personnel. This heightened readiness will continue until the new president's inauguration is complete and he arrives at his office on Wednesday. Around 60,000 officers are assigned to polling station security, 45,000 to ballot transport, and 7,000 to counting center protection. That's all I have for now. I'll be back with more updates for our later newscast. Back to you, Sunny.
All right, Annie, thank you for the latest from the National Election Commission. We turn now to the National Assembly, where the two main political parties have set up camps to watch the vote count that is slated to begin after polling stations close doors at 8 in the evening. First then, our Moon Hae-ryun joins me now from the Liberal camp. Hae-ryun, welcome. It's a little after 2 in the afternoon, and judging from the scene behind you, Hae-ryun, I assume it's relatively quiet there.
That's right, Sunny. So I'm currently standing in the middle of the main conference hall, which is where the DP has set up its situation room. And as you've just said, it's still relatively quiet here, save for the press around me. But later on, the party members are expected to start coming in and gather here in the afternoon. As you can see behind me, there are 2 big screens towards the front of the stage and 10 smaller screens set up on the stage itself, which is how the party and its candidate Lee Jae-myung will be watching the vote count unfold once the polls close at 8 p.m. Lee Jae-myung will be resting at his home in Gyeong, Incheon, as he has no official schedule for today after finishing up his final rally last night. While nothing has been confirmed as of yet, he's expected to head over here once the voting concludes and the results begin to take shape. Once they do roll in, they will no doubt influence the atmosphere and the energy in this room. Lee Jae-myung was the forerunner in national polls before the blackout for new polls 6 days ago. So expectations are high among party members, hoping to ride that momentum to a win tonight.
Hae-ryun, before you go, do tell us a bit more about Lee Jae-myung's final public rally at Seoul's Yeouido Monday night.
That's right. So as campaign activity is prohibited on the election day itself, last night was Lee Jae-myung's last opportunity to appeal to the public face-to-face. And he brought his final rally here to Yeouido, where the National Assembly building that I'm currently standing in is located. But it's also a symbolic location for the December 3rd martial law protest. Let's take a listen to what he said.
Tomorrow's vote will decide, end the insurrection or continue it, restore livelihoods or destroy them, grow the economy or wreck it.
So after the rally, he live-streamed on YouTube to make a final appeal. Sitting in front of the camera, he told viewers he was still 3 votes short and urged them to help carry him across the finish line. Over the past 22 days, Lee Jae-myung's campaign traveled over 5,000 kilometers, taking him to 66 rallies with 236,000 people on the trail. His last year of campaigning took him across key battlegrounds in this whole metropolitan area, from Gangbuk to Gangseo and finally to Seongnam, where he first entered politics. Yi pledged to order an immediate review of the economic situation should he take office, placing urgent focus on recovering livelihoods. With all eyes now on how tonight's results will unfold, that's all I have for now. But I'll be back in a later newscast with more updates. Back to you, Sunny.
All right, Arirang, thank you for the latest from the Liberal camp. Up next, we touch base with the Conservative camp, also at the National Assembly, preparing for its members to gather for the vote count later this evening. I have our correspondent, Oh Seong, standing by live. Seong, it's good to have you on. So what's the latest at your end then?
Hi, Sunny. Well, as you said, it is rather early in the afternoon, isn't it? So we have 6 or so hours left until the ballots close. So you can see probably behind me that the Situation Room for the People Power Party is also relatively quiet, with just some few journalists and I think about 10 TV screens behind me. No other real activity here. And, well, as for the party atmosphere, I would say that the mood within the party members and among supporters as well is rather mixed. So there's emotions running high, of course. There's hope, which of course springs eternal in any election camp. But there's also a sense of inevitability and anxiety. As Kim Moon-soo in the national polls, he's been running significantly behind his main rival, Democratic Party candidate Lee Jae-myung, by around 10 percentage points, with some polls showing an even wider gap. Still, there's some cautious optimism that Kim did his absolute best in the campaign, and there could be a turnaround among the so-called shy conservatives and undecided voters. Now, as per tradition, Kim Moon-soo himself will monitor the voting and ballot counting process from his home in Gwanak-gu district in southern Seoul. If the vote count indicates that he might be the winner, then he's going to come right here to the Situation Room in the National Assembly's library tonight. Key PPP members will also be on standby at the party's election headquarters from 7:30 p.m.
Meanwhile, Seong, I understand Kim Moon-soo sought out supporters in several cities over a span of some 10 hours yesterday. Could you tell us more?
Sure, Sunny. So Kim Moon-soo was really pulling out all the stops on his last day of campaigning, starting from the southern island of Jeju and working his way all the way up to the central city of Seoul. Of course, the 73-year-old candidate pledged governance reform in a way that meets the demands of the new generation. And he also apologized for impeached President Yoon Suk-yeol's martial law declaration last year, which has, of course, tainted this party ever since. And, well, as he stopped by Busan for the third time, the conservative stronghold of Daegu and the central city of Daejeon, Kim lashed out against Democratic Party rival Lee Jae-myung, warning against his style of dictatorial governance and raised the red flag on Lee's family scandals. Kim stressed that his own wife has never used a corporate card of his and that his daughter had never publicly uttered vulgar language like Lee's son allegedly did. Now, stood on stage with his family at the Seoul City Hall Square, Lee held his final rally in the Korean capital. The PPP candidates emphasized unity with former rivals from the party primary, including Na Kyung-won, An Chol-soo and Han Dong-un, to prevent what he called a dictatorship under Lee Jae-myung. After failing to achieve a conservative joint ticket with Reform Party's Lee Jun-seok, Kim further called on voters to support him, not Reform's candidate, saying that a split vote would only help the DP's Lee Jae-myung win.
I believe tomorrow will be a great day. It will be the day we stop the bulletproof dictatorship and protect the Republic of Korea. A day when this nation can finally blossom.
Over 22 days of official campaigning, Kim Moon-soo has travelled over 7,300 kilometres to hold 157 election campaigns.
All right, Seong, thank you for that coverage of the Conservative camp. Moving on then, Reform Party candidate Lee Jun-seok was in the southern port city of Busan early this morning, having wrapped up his campaign in the conservative stronghold of Daegu City Monday evening. Ahead of this final rally, he sat down separately with students at the Korea Polytechnic University in Gyeonggi-do Province and their counterparts at Yeongnam University in Gyeongsang-buk-do Province. Later today, he's also scheduled to head to his party's camp at the National Assembly for the vote count. Granted, the most important task for the new administration is that related to the bread and butter issues affecting ordinary Koreans. But also important is its foreign policy direction, especially keeping in mind the current state of geopolitics. Our Kim Jung-sil covers the foreign policy proposals of the top three contenders.
Three frontrunners, three different visions for South Korea's role on the global stage. In their final televised debate, the candidates outlined foreign policy agendas that could reshape the country's position in a region facing rapid change. Democratic Party candidate Lee Jae-myung called for balance between the U.S. alliance and stable ties with China and Russia. He warned of a diplomatic vacuum since the December 3rd martial law unrest and said South Korea's approach must evolve.
The U.S. alliance is the foundation of our foreign policy. It must be developed practically, inclusively, and with a long-term vision. But we must not neglect ties with China and Russia. They require careful, strategic management.
On North Korea, Lee seems to be charting a different course from past progressive leaders favoring step-by-step engagement over demands for immediate denuclearization. Conservative candidate Kim Moon-soo took a harder line, saying diplomacy must be backed by strength.
Kim Jong-un's dictatorship threatens our lives and property with nuclear weapons and missile provocations. I will build a transparent, principled inter-Korean relationship and strengthen our defences by reinforcing nuclear deterrence through the US alliance.
At the same time, his team told Arirang News he's open to meeting North Korea's leader while supporting economic and cultural engagement as long as it's grounded in South Korea's constitutional principle of one unified nation. At 40, Lee Jun-suk is the youngest candidate in the race. Last week, he laid out his latest foreign policy vision backed by sweeping institutional reform.
The president of South Korea must have international experience and a practical mindset. If elected, I will merge the unification and foreign ministries and appoint a deputy prime minister for national security to oversee foreign affairs, unification and defense policies.
He said South Korea should lead its alliance and not just rely on it. Three visions for South Korea's future on the world stage. By tonight, one of them will begin to shape it. Kim Jung-sil, Arirang News.
Now, while the top three candidates differ on diplomacy, they all agree on the dire state of the Korean economy. That being said, our business correspondent Lee Soo-jin takes a look at their respective economic prescriptions. Do take a listen.
With economic institutions both at home and abroad revising down their growth projections for South Korea, economic pledges are taking center stage in the presidential race.
The domestic economy shrank by 0.2% in the first quarter. Negative growth. How can our people make a living like this? Please elect Lee Jae-myung, a capable, loyal, and well-prepared worker as president.
It's true that Korea is now in a slump with very low growth, among the worst globally, right? I will bring this economy back to life as the president of the economy, everyone.
Half of Democratic Party candidate Lee Jae-myung's pledges focus on the economy, while 7 out of 10 of People Power Party candidate Kim Moon-soo's are economic pledges. And Lee's top economic pledge and Kim's second is artificial intelligence, signaling how both view it as central to Korea's economic growth. Both propose investing 100 trillion won, or around $71 billion into fostering the AI industry, but their plans of how they'll use these funds differ. Lee Jae-myung's AI for All initiative aims to expand public access by offering free advanced AI services, including a Korean version of ChatGPT, while also pledging to secure over 50,000 high-performance GPUs. Kim plans to set up a public-private fund to foster AI unicorns and vows to train 200,000 young specialists through graduate programs and software-focused universities. But both agree that Korea's regulations are outdated, with Lee calling for special exemptions and Kim pushing to align regulations with global standards. Reform Party candidate Lee Jun-suk, currently third in the polls, has proposed market-driven AI innovation with minimal state intervention. And another issue that has garnered much attention is each candidate's bid to improve work-life balance.
Also, he focused on 4.5-day work week is actually aimed at reducing worker fatigue and improving work-life balance. If you look at the Kim Moon-soo's proposal, he believes that with a good negotiation between workers and employers, a more flexible system can be achieved without making dramatic changes.
He has proposed reducing the standard work week from 40 to 36 hours by cutting Friday afternoons without reducing wages. Kim's plan adds an extra hour per day from Monday to Thursday for a shorter Friday without reducing total hours and includes exemptions to the 52-hour cap for the semiconductor sector. And Lee Jun-seok, instead of a 4.5-day workweek proposal, has pledged labor reforms that include giving local governments the authority to adjust the minimum wage to revitalize regional economies. Though each candidate's visions differ, their focus on the economy underscores its central role in this election. 이수진, 아리랑 뉴스.
요새 쉬었음 청년들이 굉장히 사회 문제로 대두되고 있는데 그 부분에 대한 해결이 가장 먼저 이루어져야 될 거라고 생각합니다.
저는 일단 각자가 말하는 정책에 대해서 집중하고 그래도 5년이라는 길다면 길고 짧다면 짧은 시간 동안 본인이 말하는 거에 대해서 잘 지켜가는 정부가 되었으면 좋겠습니다.
기후와 관련해서는 조금 더 재생에너지나 뭐 이런 쪽에 조금 더 관심을 가지고 탈원전 정책에 조금 더 관심을 가지는 그런 정부가 되었으면 좋겠습니다.
대학 서열화를 끝내고 그리고 사교육 시장을 줄이는 방향으로 좀 더 평등한 교육 정책을 위해서 애써야 되지 않나 이런 생각을 갖고 있습니다.
누가 돼도 상관은 없지만 그 공약을 하셨더라면 하나라도 지켜주는 게 있었으면 좋겠어요. 아무래도 자영업 쪽에 있다 보니까 자영업자 쪽에 조금 더 신경을 써줬으면 좋을 것 같아요.
일단 기본적으로 주거 안정이 좀 제대로 이루어졌으면 하는 바람입니다.
없는 분들을 좀 생각해서 서로가 나눔의 실천을 했으면 좋겠어요.
아무래도 제가 이제 30대 초반이다 보니까 이제 결혼 이런 관련해서 정책들이 물론 지금도 잘 나오고 있는 것 같은데 아직도 청년들이 좀 결혼을 준비하는 데 있어서 어려움을 겪고 있기 때문에 결혼 문제에 있어서 좀 이제 정책 같은 것도 좀 더 많이 완화되고 대출 규제라든지 이런 것들 많이 좀 풀어졌으면 좋겠다라는 생각이 있습니다.
And on that note, we end our special coverage of the presidential election for now. We return with updates at 5 p.m. Korea Standard Time. Join us then.
Set the facts straight. Get Korea right. K-culture is sweeping the globe. K-pop, K-drama, K-movie, K-food, and even K-beauty. Korean cultural content is gaining more and more fans worldwide. It's indeed the golden age of K-culture. But with this growing interest comes an increase in misinformation about Korea. There's so much inaccurate information out there. Even AI can sometimes get it wrong. So, we must set things straight and correct all the misinformation. So here's the plan. The Voluntary Agency Network of Korea, Bank, and Arirang TV present the Get Korea Right project. Our goal is to provide accurate information on important keywords that come to mind when we think of Korea. Blatant errors and false claims that distort history. It's time to set the record straight, sharing the true history and culture of Korea while raising the national brand. Let's get started with Get Korea Right. Are you ready to join?
Food is one of the most important factors for human sustenance and can be called the source of life. Our food culture has existed for a long time, but a wind of change is blowing. The concept of food has gone from individual consumption to valuable consumption, and personalized or customized services are becoming more detailed.
식품과 관련된 문제를 해결할 수 있는 솔루션을